Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the end game strategies. Today we continue with some middle game strategies again. Today we're continuing the series with our common attacking themes. In my previous video I've already started the series with this common attacks against your opponent's fianchetto. In my previous video we covered this queen and bishop battery against your opponent's fianchetto bishop. So it was the setup, for instance, like we had maybe here the queen on d2, the bishop on e3, and then simply traded off the bishop on h6. After taking off the bishop on g6, we have g7. Pardon me, we have created more weaknesses in your opponent's position, and then we could have attacked his weaknesses and maybe win the game very effectively. So today we're continuing the series with the two knights attack. You'll see how dangerous the two knights will be against your opponent's fianchetto. I'll show you some common tactical motifs that can happen to you. Maybe you can apply them in some of your games when you're trying to beat your opponent, because these are some elements you should really recognize in your game, because they are really sort of patterns in chess which you should recognize, because winning a game effectively is of course enjoyable, and we want of course to create really this sacrifices, this pawn breakthrough motifs, and many of these beautiful elements that can happen to you in a chess game. So today, as said, we are doing this two knights motifs. Here we have the knight on f3 and the knight on g3. This was one of my games. I wanted to show you how dangerous the two knights can be against your opponent's fianchetto. So far I have already traded off the bishops on the bishops of the board, so the my opponent didn't have any more the bishop on g7. And here is a tactical motif. Basically it's game over already for black, because first of all you have the move here e5, and this kicks away of course the knight. The knight has to retreat maybe to d5, and now you have a very nice tactical shot here, knight to h5. If your opponent, for instance, go king to h8, then we have queen to h6, attacking here the g7 square. If your opponent, for instance, tries rook to g8 in order to cover the g6, the g7, then we have knight to g5, creating this checkmate threat on h7. And for instance, if your opponent tries something like knight to f6 in order to protect this h7, then of course you have knight takes f7 and it's game over. So what black can do here, I think he can of course take out the knight, it's not a problem, but then you have queen to g5. The king has to retreat to h8, and now you have queen to h6, because the bishop is of course creating again this very powerful attacking motif here on h7. Your opponent can try maybe f5 to close the like square diagonal, but now we have again here this very nice motif, knight to g5. Your opponent cannot cover. He has to play maybe something like knight to f6, but now you can simply try bishop to f5. Now we have a triple attack against h7, and this would be also game over. We have also some deflection motif. We can take out the knight here on d7, and the knight has to take, and then again try here this checkmate pattern on h7. So you see how dangerous this knight can be. This is the starting maneuver that I wanted to show you. So this is something that you should memorize, this setup. When your opponent doesn't have any more the dark square bishop, for instance like here, then e5 pawn breakthrough, and when you see that you have this setup, tactical shots are really possible. This is simply too much to handle. After the move e5 you get rid of this last defender, the knight has to retreat, and here again we have this very nice checkmate pattern. So if your opponent, for instance, takes out first the knight on f3, then of course we take out first the knight on f6, and then after the bishop. So black will lose here decisive material, and it's again game over. So let's see now a couple of examples from some games. Here's a game played by let me see, Dirk Daniel von Geet against Guit, and here you see again we have the setup, knight to f3, knight to g3, with the possibility maybe to create this knight to h5 or knight to f5 tactical motifs. In the game, white tried knight to g5, attacking this f7 square. Black has to castle because this f7 was too weak, and now again we have this very nice tactical motif, knight to h5. If of course black takes, that's not good because queen to h5 leads into a complicated game for black. Here you cannot cover anymore this h7. You have to play something like rook to e8, but then you leaving also your f7 square weak, and again it would be game over. So in the game here black tried bishop to h8. Most of the times you'll see that your opponent will retreat with the bishop, trying to hang on to this bishop, because as I said also in my previous video of the series, that this bishop is the key defender of dark squares in front of the king. So black is trying to rely on his bishop, maybe get some other pieces into the defense. So far this knight is also this knight on e7 is also defensive piece, maybe trying to bring somehow, if the position allows it, the bishop also into the defense. But now here we have queen to f3, simply creating this very important queen lift sort of, and preparing knight to f6 maneuvers, because then black has to give up his dark square bishop. Here queen to e8 was played, we have knight to f6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, we have d takes c3, but now knight to f7, and in this position it's basically game over, because after rook takes f7 we have bishop takes h6. You see, we sacrificed some pieces in order to get this dark square bishop working, because you see how dangerous it is for black if he doesn't have anymore the dark square bishop. Now checkmate threats are basically unpreventable. Here you cannot play with the move on f8, and here the threat is of course queen to g7 checkmate, because white is using simply this very annoying pin. So great attack here by white, I think, with this knight to h5 move, really creating great attacking possibilities, and it was basically game over. So let's see now another game. Here you can see we have a similar position. It's a gameplay by Zawadzka against Gaponenko. Here also we had first the trade off the bishops on g7. In the game black tried here c4, after c4 here king to g7, and now we have bishop takes c4. It seems now that black has gained the central pawn, which would be a great thing after knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and now knight to g5. Here after bishop to b7, I want you also to memorize one tactical motif, which is very important when you're attacking your opponents with the knight against the fianchetto. Here bishop takes f7 is the possibility, because the threat is of course knight to e6 and the fork on the king on the queen. So here, for instance, if rook takes, then we have knight to e6, and it will be again game over. Queen to b6 was played, and I'm not going to show you now the whole game. I just wanted to realize these ideas, because now of course white has a completely better position, because we have gained the pawn, which is more important. We have gained this very important pawn in front of black's king. Now we could even retreat, try again knight to e6 motifs with some forks on the rook and the king, bringing the queen somehow in the attack, and many of these beautiful elements of the chess game. So let's see now another example. Here it's a game played by Magnus Carlsen against Vladimir Malakhov. Again, we have here an advanced pawn, like in the first example. We have kicked away this knight from f6 to d5, and again here Magnus simply proceeds with the move bishop to a6, again with his queen and bishop battery against black's bishop. I've explained this motif in my previous video, as I mentioned, so you should watch these videos combined. Here after bishop takes bishop to h6, we have bishop to h8. Again, black is trying to rely simply on his dark square as a key defender in front of the king. Here h4 was played by Magnus, simply trying h5, getting some more weaknesses in black's position. Here knight to f8 was played, and now knight to c5. Very important move, which stops this potential c5 pawn breakthrough, but also prevents this knight to jump on a very active square on e6, because this knight would be also a very nice defensive piece, because it covers the g7 square. So in the game queen to a7 was played. Magnus simply pushed forward h5. We have knight to c7, and now after h takes g6 we have f takes g6, and now bishop takes f8. Now we get rid of another defender. It's the knight. It's a very important piece in front of black's king. After rook takes f8, now the queen comes very actively into the game. We have bishop to g7, and now queen to h4 with the preparation to play knight to g5, and then queen to h7 checkmate. That's why f6 was played, but now Magnus simply attacked another weakness. It's the pawn on g6, king to h7, and now of course knight to h4 attacking the g6. Here g5 had to be played, but now queen to h5 attacking the king, king to g8, and now knight to f5. Basically this game is over because you have queen to g6. If the rook, for instance, covers on h7, then we have some 4 possibilities with knight on h6. That's why here knight to e8 was played, but now queen to g6, and in this position Malakov resigned. Let's imagine this position here, rook to f7. We have even possibilities here, knight to e6. We can also try e6 immediately with this pawn breakthrough, kicking away the rook, and then maybe try again here this knight to h6 motif. So great attacking possibilities here for Magnus, and in this position black resigned. So let's see now the last example of this two knights attack. You see how dangerous this knight attacks can be. Again, I wanted to show you a game of mine. Here we have two knights. They are not now on g3 and f3, but they're really near to here black's king, and in the last move my opponent, it was 2500 rated opponent, he played the move h6, kicking away the bishop, and simply I got rid of the bishop of the knight on f6. After knight takes f6, I played knight to e5, simply creating a very important knight outpost. And what I've noticed here in this particular position, that my opponent has already weakened the pawn structure with the move h6, so he has some weaknesses already. And here I was aiming against this g6 square. I saw that something could have happened here, and I'm also attacking this very weak c6 pawn. So in the game, queen to d6 was played, and I simply sacrificed the knight. Knight takes g6, we have f takes g6, queen takes g6. After knight to e4, attacking the queen, I didn't want, of course, to trade off the queens. We have queen to f7, and now king to h8, and now I found a really great tactical shot. Rook takes c6, deflecting here the queen or the rook from this 8th rank. If, for instance, the rook takes, then I have here queen takes e8. So in the game, my opponent tried queen takes b4, and you can pause the video and maybe try to find now the best next move. It's a forced checkmate sequence in 2. So I hope you can find this move, because the best move is, of course, rook takes h6, and if, for instance, black tries to take, bishop takes h6, then of course knight to g6, and it's game over. So okay, I hope you realize these ideas. The main tactical possibilities are sometimes to weaken further your opponent's pawn structure in front of the king, get rid of the key defenders like the bishop, like the knight. It's not a problem. Get this knight active. You see how dangerous, for instance, this knight on g3 and f3 were. We had really some great tactical possibilities with some sacrifices, with some pawn breakthroughs, opening up the position, splitting the position. And the more important thing is this e5 pawn breakthrough is also important. When you do that, then you deflect your queen, your opponent's knight, for instance, from the defense of the king, and then you have again some more tactical possibilities. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. You should watch my previous video also with this queen and bishop battery, so you should watch them combined. Here is the link to that video, and you can also watch my other basics in chess series videos with some more opening principles, middle game strategies, and the end game strategies. And you can also watch my chess tactics and chess puzzle series, in which I show you all of the possible tactical motifs that can happen to you in a chess game. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.